express percents as fractions, we are going to solve percent problems using proportions. And before we do, we'll go over 2 vocabulary words, both of which are reviewed for you. First, we have a proportion. You know that a proportion is an equation which states that 2 ratios are equal. And then our vocabulary word from the previous lesson, percent. Percent is literally parts of 100. And it is a ratio whose denominator is 100%. Let's take a look at the first of our 3 examples. What percent of 35 is 7? Use a proportion. Now I want you to take a look at what I did here, because you are going to use this model for every single problem that you solve in this lesson. We are talking about percents and proportions. So the first thing I do is set up my proportion. As we did in previous lessons, 2 empty fraction bars with an equal sign in between. But this has a different piece. Since we're talking about percents with proportions, I make one ratio my percent ratio. And what I mean by that is our 100% will be in the denominator, always, always, because that's our whole. And then we add the percent sign in the numerator to remind us. It's a way for us to keep our units aligned or even. Now, in previous lessons, when we worked with proportions, we kept our units level numerator to numerator and then denominator to denominator. This is different. When we are talking about percents, we have to have it all contained in one ratio. I want you to do this before you even read the problem and find out what you need to do. So here's our proportion with our percent and our 100%. What percent of 35 is 7? Now you know that to solve a proportion, you need 3 pieces of the 4. We already have 1. And now all we have to do is plug in the piece of the information that we know and then solve a proportion as we always do. Look at what this says here. What percent? If we're finding out the percent, that means that this is our unknown. So I'm going to put an X in right there. What percent of 35 is 7? 35 here is the whole. So we are going to put that in the denominator because the 35 is the 100% of what we're talking about. And here we have 7. Take a look at what it says here too. What percent of 35 is 7? So here we have a grammar lesson. This percent is linked to the number 7 using this linking verb is. That means the 7 has to be equal with, in this case, our unknown percent. So this is the way that you set up this proportion, and then moving forward, you could probably do this in your sleep by now. Here we cross multiply. We have x times 35, which is 35x, and then 100 times 7, which is 700. And we're going to divide both sides by the coefficient. Here it's 35, because that gives us coefficient of 1. We divide the 700 by 35, and we get that x equals 20. So the final answer for this problem is that 7 is 20% of 35. Here's our second example. And notice I have my proportions set up already. What number is 36% of 150? Well, this should jump out at you right away. We like it when we have our percent because it's easy to see exactly where it goes. The percent goes with the percent. So now we have to decide where the 150 goes. It's tempting to say that the 150 will automatically go in the denominator. And while it is true for this problem, we want to make sure that we remember that we may encounter problems where we are looking at something that is greater than 100%. So then just because it's a big number, that's my takeaway, it doesn't mean that it goes here. Anyway, what number is 36%? Again, a grammar lesson. We have the linking verb is. Our unknown, because it says what number, that's what we're looking for, has to be equal with the 36% of 150. 150 here is our whole. What number is 36% of 150? Use a proportion. Now this is the most important piece. And now I want to do something a little differently than I usually do in these videos. I'm going to leave this problem like this. And as part of your assignment, I want you to work out the rest of the math. I want you to solve this proportion, and then tomorrow when we're going over our notes, you'll have the answer for me. So tomorrow you'll tell me what number is 36% of 150. And here we have our last example. 15 is what percent of 25? 15 is what percent? We don't know our second percent, so we put our x right here. Linking verb is. 15 is the unknown percent. The unknown percent is in the numerator. That's where our 15 goes. 25 is our whole. That goes in the denominator so that it's even with the percent that is a whole, 100%. And again, just as I said with number 2, for number 3 here, what you're going to do as an added piece to this evening's assignments is that you are going to solve this proportion, and in class tomorrow be prepared to tell me what percent 15 is of 25.